Okay, this is the last study unit, Learning Unit 5 for Professional Ethics, LJU 4802. And if you go through these learning units, and I have sometimes said the wrong one or whatever, forgive me, but you will follow me. And that's why I say, have your study guide with you, I will give you the page numbers and follow me. Okay, so this is Learning Unit 5. And this is now examples of where you possibly can go wrong in your profession. So once again, this part is for the shorter questions, but I'll indicate as we go through it. The first thing that you need to know is that advocates have a referral position. In other words, advocates do not consult with clients directly. Clients go to an attorney, and the attorney refers the case if expertise is needed to the advocate. That is what we call the referral rule. But I'm aware of it, and you can mention it depending on how I ask the question. According to the Legal Practice Act, we now have 3 categories. So you have the attorney with a trust account, you have the advocate without a trust account, and that person is still part of the referral rule. He's still not allowed to see the clients directly from the street because he or she will not have a trust account. But now, according to the Legal Practice Act, there's a 3rd category, that is of advocates with a trust account. And they are allowed to get work directly from clients. So you need to know and understand what is meant with the referral rule. And in the same sense, also know what is a trust account. That a trust account and a business account are 2 different accounts. The business account of an attorney is what is used to running the business, to pay the telephone bills, the coffee, the tea, the salaries, etc. The trust account, that money belongs to the client. It is just kept by the attorney until such time as it is needed to pay it over when you buy immovable property, or until such time that you will finalize your account and the client will now have to pay. So you need to know what is a trust account and the referral rule. But okay, so a referral rule is on page 52. When I go over to page 53, you will see that we talk there about a trust fund and the Fidelity Trust Fund. Now, if you work with clients directly, like an attorney or that 3rd category advocate, you need to have that Fidelity Trust Certificate. That it means that you have a trust account and that you are allowed to see clients directly. Page 53, once again, a question that has been asked, a question that might be asked again, because that is what we want you to know in practice one day. What are reasonable fees? How do you determine what to ask the client? Because one advocate cannot ask 6,000 Rand per quarter of an hour and another one 12,000. There must be some guidelines on what is reasonable fees that an advocate of a certain stature, years experience, etc. can ask, and what attorneys can ask, etc. So on page 53, there are the guidelines how to determine what are reasonable fees. Nice question to ask, have been asked many times. On page 54, confidentiality. This is, and I keep on repeating myself, the whole content of this subject is to your benefit one day as the practitioner. So you need to know these things, and that is why we test it. What does confidentiality means? There's a confidential relationship between the attorney and the client. What does it mean? To whom does it belong? Does it just cover the documents, or will it cover the oral statements or conversations between them as well? So go and don't think you know what confidentiality means. It will not be possible to give you 10 marks for just saying there is a relationship of confidence. That will earn you 1 mark. You have to go to your study guide. You have to go and make sure that you can answer a question for 5 marks at least on what is confidentiality. How does it work? To whom does it belong? And how far does it go? To written and oral discussions, etc. And then there are exceptions, and that is on page 55. You can add that as well. And then you need to know what is a conflict of interest. Once again, I warn you, it's easy. You can talk to me and you can say, you understand what is a conflict of interest. But to be able to answer a question, you need to go to your study guide and make sure that you can give me examples on page 56, 2 situations specifically where a conflict of interest can arise. For example, when one attorney is representing the plaintiff and the defendant. That cannot be. Or you represented this person in one case. Can you represent him in a different scenario in another case? The facts will determine. So go and see when is there a conflict of interest, because you're not allowed as a legal practitioner to have a conflict of interest. You can also not appear for a company in which you have assets. So go and see these things, because that is what is needed for you to be a virtuous. We go back to our philosophical approaches. What am I teaching you this year? To be a more virtuous person. So then you need to know to avoid situations of conflicts of interest. So there you go, it is on page 56. On page 58, we do contingency fee agreements. Now, contingency fee agreements, you might not everyone be part of that one day in your profession, but especially if you go into medical negligence or the road accident fund, then this is very, very, very applicable. It basically means that you take a client that does not have the money to pay you, and you have an agreement, and what that agreement will state, if you are successful, then the person will pay. So no win, no fee. But there's an act. There's a Contingency Fee Act, and you have to have this agreement according to the Act. You cannot go beyond that. You have to stick to the requirements of the Act. So you will see we asked it last year, we might ask it again. What is a Contingency Fee Agreement? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? And then you will see, and I want you to note this on page 58, that under Contingency Fee Agreements, we have prescribed the Masangu case, the Bobrov case, and the Contingency Fees Act. And then there's an article that you can read. But you definitely have to go through the Masangu case. If I remember correctly, otherwise I'll do it in this week, I've posted the case under announcements on my UNISA. So that is prescribed. So I can ask the question, discuss a contingency fee agreement, and refer to the Masangu case. And that will be then for 20 or 10 marks. So you will have to, as the Masangu case is prescribed, go through the Masangu case. Although I say that the Bobrov case is prescribed, that is not so important. You can just take note of that. What happened in that case is that those attorneys went beyond the Contingency Fees Act and asked more. If I remember correctly, they charged 30%, where the Contingency Fees Act say you're allowed 25%. So their argument was they concluded a common law contract. But that is not allowed because there's an act, the Contingency Fees Act. Okay, and this is it. So there's no reason why all of you cannot get a distinction. The work is not difficult. The work is to your advantage as a person. So put in an effort. Go through the study guide, because this is knowledge that you're going to use for the rest of your life. It is not just knowledge like the requirements of a crime or the requirements of a delict. Once you know that, you know that. This is making you a better person, to be a virtuous legal professional one day. But if things go wrong, to know that you can be removed from the role, but if you do things right, you can also be readmitted. You need to know these things. And I want to end where I started by saying ethics is not black or white. You must distinguish it from morals. Your morals and your value system and your religion is something different. Ethics is broader than this. You will act according to your religion and your custom, etc. But you also act within an ethical environment. And in ethics, you will have to look at the circumstances and then make the decisions. I come back to the 50 Rand for the telephone call. The purpose of this whole year and what I'm teaching you is to be that better person. Do not charge the 50 Rand. Yes, and some of you will say, yeah, but then I will not have a business. Just think about it. Put yourself in your position of your client and be the better person. Because then this whole year was a success. So good luck with your exams. If you go through these YouTube videos again and again, you will have enough guidelines to pass the exam. But I think it's an Afrikaans saying, so I'm going to translate it. I don't know, maybe it's English, but you can take a horse to the water. You cannot force it to drink. I've taken you to the water. I've given you everything that I possibly could for you to pass this module. But you now have to drink, meaning you have to go to your study guide and study the work. Then it must be successful. Good luck. Bye-bye.